Testing. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So let's start. Lesson 1.2b. Sometimes we'll split lessons up into 2 days. Sometimes we'll do them all in one. Like tomorrow, we'll do lesson 1.3 all in one day. But this one, you know, I had to talk about stuff yesterday and today. All right, 1.2b. We're going to talk about some properties. And you know all of these, but you may have forgotten them. Properties. And these only work with real numbers, but that's all we know so far, so we're good. All right, first we're going to do some comparisons. So letter A, we're going to compare. All right, how do we compare things, especially in the math world? How do I compare like the number 5 and 8? Alligators, yes. All right, we're going to compare which one's the larger amount. So we're going to use alligators. All right, so number 1. And you might need a calculator for this. You can use the little calculator that you used last year in geometry if you have one of those. Or you can estimate. Okay, this one's not going to be too bad. So we're going to compare rad 17 and 3.8. And sometimes they'll put a little box here, and you have to decide which way it goes. And with these, it's kind of nice because you have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. Yeah, half chance. Okay, so rad 17, a couple ways you can do that. Plug it into your calculator. Find out what rad 17 is. Does your phone do radicals?
Yes.
If you turn it side, yes! I just learned that this summer. But rad 17, I know that number is bigger than what? 4. How'd you get that? Because the square root of 16 is bigger than 4, or is 4. So the square root of 17 would be, isn't that cool as you just think about it? So rad 17 is bigger than 4, and 4 is bigger than 3.8. So we're going to do our little alligator that way. So rad 17 is greater than 3.8. You're going to have something like that on your next quiz. I know, you're so stoked about it. Number 2. Now let's compare some negative numbers. How about negative rad 26, I know, and negative 6.25. Okay, so those of you who have gotten the calculator, did you go home? Did you tell your parents about this calculator? Did they yell at you? By the way, go home today and tell your parents how much you appreciate them sending you here and how much of a financial burden it is for them, and you appreciate that. Because it's expensive, so, but in a good way. All right, so let's do this. We're going to do the square root of 26. Okay, that's how you do it on this calculator. Can you see it? There you go. And hit enter, and you get 5.1. So negative 5.1, we're going to compare that to negative 6.25. And were you thinking it's going to be around 5? Because rad 25 is 5. Yeah, negative 5, actually. So which one's bigger, negative 5.1 or negative 6.25? Yes. Negative 5.1 is bigger. There you are. Okay, so that's pretty basic, pretty simple. Now we're going to move to part B, which we're going to talk about all of our properties. Okay, more memorizations today. You have to know all the groups of numbers that we learned yesterday, and you're going to need to know all of these properties. Okay? But I know you've learned them, because my 4th grader learned these last year. It's so weird, but I know, 4th grade, that's a long time ago. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties, 6 properties to do. Are you ready? Let's do it. All right. The first property is called closure. And then it's not talking about when you break up with someone and you have closure. It's not that kind of a property. Sometimes you don't, though, right? Closure means that it's closed. All of our properties are going to be for real numbers, and if I take 2 real numbers and I add them, I'm not going to get a square. Okay? It's closed just to real numbers. So, closure. We're going to have a property for addition and a property for multiplication. So closure means this. If you take A plus B, you will get a real number. So take rad 2 plus 3. You still get a real number. You're not going to get a giraffe or a cupcake. Okay? It's closed. I know. Isn't that a simple property? Duh. You take a number, add another number, you get a number. Okay. Multiplication, same thing. If you take A times B, you will get a real number. Real number. So that's the closure property. All right, the next property is one that people get mixed up with the one after it that we're going to talk about. So the next one is commutative. Do you know the other one I'm talking about? Associative, yeah. So commutative and associative properties, those are the two that people kind of mix up. So let me show you a good way to remember commutative. So for addition, commutative says that A plus B is equal to B plus A. Doesn't matter what order you add things. Does it matter what order you subtract things? Yes, yeah, that does. There's no commutative property for subtraction. But the commutative property for addition is that if you take 2 plus 3, it's the same thing as 3 plus 2. Same thing with multiplication. A times B equals B times A. Now, that doesn't necessarily work for division, does it? 3 divided by 4 is not 4 divided by 3. So these properties are just for addition and multiplication. Now, associative property of addition looks like this. If you take two numbers and you add them together and then add C later, it doesn't matter what groups they're in, okay? We can regroup this and we can add B and C first and then A later, okay? Now, look at the order of the letters. Do you see in the first line it's A, B, C? In the second line it's A, B, C. Order doesn't change, okay? Commutative, I think of it as like communication. We're going back and forth, we're changing, you're talking, I'm talking. Associative is like groups, like, I don't associate with them anymore, they're really bad kids. I'm gonna go associate with these kids, okay? Yeah, right? All right, also works for multiplication. You can do A times B times C, and that's the same thing as A times B times C together. Are these familiar to you at all? Yeah? A little bit? Okay. They try and trick you, though. I'm going to try and trick you in just a minute. Because you think, oh, associative has parentheses and commutative does not. But that's not necessarily true. Okay. All right, a couple more. How about the identity property? Identity property says this. I'm going to take A, I'm going to add it to a special number, and I'm going to get A. I'm going to get the same thing back, my identity. Like I'm looking in a mirror. What number is that? 0. Yes, you know this one. Okay? If I take a number and I add it to 0, I still get that number back. I know these are so simple, right? How are they even properties? How about multiplication? A times a special number equals A. 1. Perfect. A times 1 equals A. All right. This is called the inverse property. Some people will call it the opposite property for addition. And then they'll call it the reciprocal property for multiplication. Reciprocal. Sorry, this is real sloppy, huh? Does it bother you? You'll get over it. Okay, the inverse property or the opposite property says if I take A and I add it to something, I'm going to get 0. What do you think that something is? Negative A. Perfect. See, you could have come up with these properties hundreds of years ago if you lived at that time. All right, how about this one? This is tricky. A times something equals 1. A times A equals 1? Oh, sometimes, but not all the time. 0? A times 0 equals 1?
A times negative.
Look at what it's called, reciprocal property. 1 over A. So if you had 2 and you multiplied it by its reciprocal, which is 1/2, you get 1. All right, last property. Last property. All of these properties so far had one for addition, one for multiplication. This last property combines them into one. And it is called the distributive property. Have you heard of it? Yes. I didn't even spell that right at all. Not even close. There's a U here and there's an I there. Distributive.
The dot is just for information.
That's bad too, isn't it? No, there's an I right here. Okay. Does spelling count in this class? Distributive. Yes, there we go.
Connect the dots.
Mm-hmm. All right, distributive property says this. You take a number on the outside of a quantity and a sum, A times B plus C. You take that A and you can distribute it or multiply it into both, and you get AB plus AC. That one I think everyone pretty much remembers a lot of the times. Okay, so here we go. What are we going to do with these? Well, we're going to do some problems. What number are we on? 3? Number 3.
Did you paint those?
I did. Thank you. Yeah. I go to paint night because my mom really likes to go. Actually, the big tree with the circle.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You guys are so good. I'm bad with technology, obviously. Okay, here we go. Number 3. All right, we're going to play a little game. Not really a game. You're going to answer some questions about math, and I like to call it a game. It makes it sound more fun, even though it's not. All right. We're going to play which property is it? Which property? So you've learned 6 now, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 examples. So which property says that if I take negative 2/3 times negative 3/2, I get 1 every time. So don't shout it out. I know some of you guys are super fast. Give someone else a chance to think about it. And we're going to write down the property that is. So if you look at your notes, you can see that something times something equals 1. And there it is. Does anyone have a guess or not a guess? Yeah? It starts with an I. Inverse property. And now I'm okay with you just saying inverse property. They will say the inverse property of multiplication. But we know it's multiplication. So I'm cool with inverse property. Moving on to the next one. All right, so that was letter A, by the way. Letter B. Which property again? Here we go. 3 times 4 times 5 is equal to 4 times 3 times 5. Oh. Now here's the one that I warned you about a while ago that I try and trick you, okay? I don't want to see you do bad on quizzes and tests, but I want you to know the difference. I don't want to give you easy problems either. Bless you.
Thank you.
All right, so this one, you're probably down, you probably narrowed it down to 2 properties that you're deciding between. You're deciding between commutative and associative, right? You see the parentheses, they're there to mess with you, okay? Did the groups change at all? No. 4 and 3 are still together. They're not with 5. The order changed. 3 and 4 are communicating. They're going back and forth. So this would be the commutative property. Who had that? Let's see your hands. You had that? Who had associative? You don't? Yeah? Did you? That's okay. Yeah, that happens. Commutative property of multiplication. Just write commutative. All right. Next one. I'm going to let you try this one on your own. It's okay if you get it wrong. 3 times g plus h plus 2g equals 3g plus 3h plus 2g. Shh, don't shout it out. What's so funny, you guys?
You.
Okay. Are you making fun of me? I don't care. I have 2 older brothers. I can take anything. Yeah. Go ahead. Hurl your insults at me. I'll cry later. All right, take a guess. Educated guess. Wow, your hair is really good. Yeah. I never noticed that. Seen you all of 2 days. Last night I was at Ralph's getting some groceries. And I was in line, and there's this kid, this tall kid, and the cashier's like, oh, you getting ready to go back to school? He's like, I started today. And then she's like, really? Where do you go? And he's like, I go to Valley Christian High School. And I was saying, I hear that's a really good school. And he looks at me like, Mom, that's my teacher. And I didn't even recognize him. I have no idea who he is. I have like 130 kids. He was tall. So I hope he says something. Was it any of you? Was it any of you? No? That's okay. That's fun. Maybe I delete this and then I record again in fourth period.
No.
You can fast forward if you don't want to hear it. It's fine. What happened? Did someone say something? All right. So what property is this? Distributive. But I didn't say anything inappropriate. That I did. All right. I can't spell distributive today. Distributive. All right. Last one. You ready for it? You guys have too much fun in here. Especially you two. What's your name? Jacob? And what's your name?
Peter.
Peter! Okay. All right, here we go. Last one. A plus 4a plus 3. Okay, now you're probably wondering, why in the world do we have all these properties? What are we going to need them for? Well, can you add 4a and 3? Are those like terms, though? Can you combine them into something like 7a? No, you can't. So if I wanted to, not evaluate this, but simplify this expression, I would need to use the property that says, let's take a plus 4a together, because they're like terms, and we're going to add 3 to that. So there's a property that says we can do that. We're actually going to do that tomorrow. We're going to simplify some expressions, some algebraic expressions, combine like terms, stuff like that tomorrow. So this is getting us ready to be like, how am I allowed to do that? There's a property that is called what? Associative, yes. Never abbreviate that to 3 letters. Okay, it's the associative property. Write it out. There you go. All right, any questions? Any last minute comments or laughters? Or we're good? Stop laughing. All right, you're good.